Have you ever heard a silence so deep it screams a story? A story that has waited 5 centuries to be told. Deep within the rugged heart of Spain lies a village frozen in time, not by ice, but by an enigma. A place where every stone, every empty doorway, whispers of a life that vanished overnight. This isn't just a ghost story. It's the true, baffling mystery of La Buesca, the silent village, and a secret from 500 years ago that we're about to uncover together. What could make an entire community disappear without a trace? The answer is more shocking than you can imagine. Welcome back to Tale from the Vale. Today, we journey to a place that time forgot, a hamlet nestled in the Asturian mountains of Spain. Its name is La Buesca, but to those who know its story, it's called this silent village. Imagine walking through streets where no one has lived for half a millennium. You see stone houses, remarkably preserved, their roofs sagging under the weight of centuries, but their walls still standing strong. You see a communal bread oven, a fountain, even a small church. It looks as if the residents just stepped out for a moment, but that moment has stretched across 500 years. The official story, the one you'll find in sparse local records, is simple, yet chilling. Around the year 1518, the entire population of La Buesca, about 100 souls, vanished. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of a fire or a battle. Historians initially pointed to the Black Death, the plague that ravaged Europe. It was a convenient explanation. A swift, deadly outbreak could easily wipe out an isolated community. But when archaeologists and forensic experts began to look closer, this neat theory started to unravel. Plague pits, mass graves used to dispose of victims, are a grim but common feature of the era. Yet, in and around La Buesca, none were ever found. Not a single one. Furthermore, local folklore and the records of neighboring villages, which were surprisingly detailed for the time, mention no catastrophic illness in that specific valley. They spoke of trade with La Buesca one season, and the next, just silence. Traders who ventured up the mountain path found a village of ghosts. They found tables set for meals, tools left in workshops, and an eerie quiet that unnerved even the most hardened mountain folk. They left, and for centuries, few dared to return. So, if not the plague, then what? This is where our mystery truly deepens. For decades, the puzzle of La Buesca stumped everyone. It became a local legend, a cautionary tale whispered to children. But in the late 20th century, a team of researchers, led by historian Dr. Elena Torres, decided to re-examine the case with fresh eyes and modern technology. They weren't just looking for bones. They were looking for the story written in the very soil of the village. They started with the water. The village fountain, fed by a mountain spring, was a source of life. Could it have also been a source of death? They tested the water source and the soil around it. What they found was not a biological agent, but a chemical one. High, and I mean unnaturally high, concentrations of a toxic heavy metal, mercury. Suddenly, a new, more sinister picture began to form. Mercury poisoning, in the 16th century? It wasn't unheard of. Alchemists and hat makers were known to suffer from its effects. But an entire village? How? The team expanded their search, analyzing the geology of the surrounding mountains. And then, they found it. Tucked away in a secluded, almost hidden part of the valley were the remains of a primitive, clandestine mining operation. The pieces of the puzzle started to click into place. 500 years ago, Spain was on the cusp of its golden age, fueled by treasures from the New World. But there was another treasure, closer to home, that was just as valuable: cinnabar. This bright red mineral is the primary ore of mercury. And mercury was the key ingredient in a process used to extract silver and gold from raw ore. It was liquid gold, in a way. Dr. Torres and her team hypothesized that the villagers of La Buesca had stumbled upon a rich vein of cinnabar. In an isolated community, struggling to survive on subsistence farming. This would have been like winning the lottery. They began to mine it, secretly. Why secretly? Because all such valuable resources were technically the property of the crown. This was their secret, their path to a better life. But they had no idea they were handling their own doom. They would have mined the rock, crushed it, and then heated it in crude furnaces to release the mercury vapor, which would then cool and condense into the liquid metal. They would have been breathing in these toxic fumes day in and day out. The dust would have settled on their clothes, in their homes, and contaminated their food. The runoff from the mining and refining process would have seeped into the ground, poisoning the very spring water they drank from the fountain. The horror of their situation was its slowness. This wasn't a sudden cataclysm. It was a creeping, insidious killer. Mercury poisoning attacks the nervous system. The initial symptoms would have been subtle, tremors, which they might have mistaken for a chill. Then came irritability, memory loss, and difficulty coordinating their movements. They would have grown weaker, confused. They would have watched their friends and family members slowly lose their minds, their bodies failing them. Imagine the paranoia, the terror. They wouldn't have understood what was happening. They might have thought they were cursed, or that a terrible madness had befallen their village. The final days of La Buesca must have been a living nightmare. The able-bodied would have become too sick to care for the infirm. Children, more susceptible to the poison, would have been the first to succumb. The village wouldn't have vanished overnight. It would have withered. It would have slowly, agonizingly, gone silent. The scene that the traders found, the tools dropped, the food left uneaten, wasn't a sign of a rapid departure. It was a sign of a final, collective collapse. The last person alive in La Buesca probably died alone, amidst the bodies of their loved ones, in a house filled with a terrible silence. The village didn't die from a plague that swept through. It died from a secret it tried to keep. The very treasure that was meant to be their salvation became their tomb. For 500 years, the mountains kept their secret. La Buesca stands today as a haunting memorial, not to a plague or a battle, but to a human tragedy born of hope and ignorance. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most valuable treasures are the most dangerous, and the silence of a place can tell the loudest story of all. A story of a dream that became a nightmare, written in the very stones and soil of the silent village. What a truly sobering tale. It makes you think about all the forgotten stories hidden just beneath the surface of the world around us. Thank you for joining me on this journey to La Buesca. If you found this mystery as compelling as I did, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to Tale from the Veil and ring that notification bell. We have so many more stories waiting to be told. Until next time, stay curious.